All right, so I've had the iPad mini for about 24 hours now, a little bit more, but I've been using it over the course of the past day I've had this. And I got some quick thoughts I want to run down before the actual review comes out in about a week or so. Let's just take a little bit of a closer look at this and see what my thoughts are after these 24 hours. Now for the people who are new here, I typically use my 2018 12.9-inch iPad Pro, and that's the only iPad that I own. So when it comes to the device I'm used to, I'm comparing it to that 12.9-inch iPad Pro. But what I can see is that the design form factor definitely translates really well to this size. And this is a handheld size, as you can see, and so was the last one, but this one, the size I think is just a little bit slimmer, and it just makes it that much easier to hold it with one hand. Now the weight of it's also really nice. If you're just trying to like drink a cup of tea or a cup of coffee while you're holding this and reading something, it's super comfortable. And I think the borders, even though they're not as slim as our phones, I think it's enough of a border so that way your thumb doesn't interact with the screen as you're holding it with one hand. Now, because the screen is quite a bit smaller than the other iPads, everything on the screen is also going to be a lot smaller. And when you just take a look at all this wasted space in the corners, I think that just takes away a little bit from the experience. I get that the layout can't really fully translate from those bigger iPads to this, but I just think this compressed look of the home screen just really takes away from the home screen experience. And I think they could have allowed the widgets and the app icons to be a bit bigger, because I think literally like some of the phone icons can be bigger on this if you have the zoomed in view on the iPhones. Now, if you do the zoomed in view on these icons, basically there's just less icons on the screen, and it takes away from the experience even more. Over the course of the past 24 hours, I've tested a few things such as watching YouTube videos, watching Apple TV Plus, taking notes, and just trying to see what this form factor can really benefit you. And so far, these are some of the ideas that I've come up with when it comes to this device. For one, the smaller form factor is just really fun to use. Coming from the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, I can definitely appreciate the smaller size, the weight of it, and just the general size of the actual iPad mini. Now, when you have the iPad Pro 12.9-inch, at sometimes, even though it's still really portable and sometimes more portable than an actual laptop, it still feels big and clunky. And the 11-inch or the 10.9-inch iPad Air can also suffice when it comes to needing a smaller form factor, but there's something about this mini size that makes it a little bit more fun, a little bit more interesting. When you take a look at the size, it's very comparable to a small notebook. And that's something where I've kind of used this iPad mini 4 as a little quick small notepad. And the form factor is very nice for those smaller type of notes. But also with reading, this is also a very similar size to those Kindle e-readers, as well as just a lot of these small paperback books. So if you're reading on this device, it's going to be a very comfortable type of size. However, it does have an LCD screen. It doesn't have the same type of screen as those e-readers. So make sure you're aware of that, because these screens can cause eye strain. As I said previously, I do watch content on my iPad mini. And overall, watching content is super fun and it's super relaxing. There's no strain on your hands or on your lap from holding a big heavy laptop or the bigger iPad. And it's just so much easier to kind of have around with you. Like if I sit outside with outdoor furniture, it's just really comfortable and it's really small, so I don't really have to worry about dropping it. Something I'm kind of surprised about is how much I like typing on this, kind of like in that phone form factor. So if I'm just typing something, it's super easy to type out, and I feel like sometimes my hands are kind of big and clunky when it types on a smaller phone, but this is like a nice spread out keyboard, and it just makes typing really easy and quick for me, and that's something I've really enjoyed on the smaller form factor. So most of what I've said is pretty much what I've noticed that's good about the iPad mini, but what about some of the drawbacks that I've already noticed with this iPad mini? For one of the first things I noticed was the 60 hertz display. I didn't really notice the 120 hertz so much on my iPad Pro. It just felt really smooth and it felt like everything worked fine. But over here, I actually have noticed, some drop frames, or at least just it being 60 hertz and not 120 hertz. And especially since the iPhone 13 Pro that I just got also has 120 hertz, I really noticed this that much more. I'm not sure if it's just maybe my device or just a software bug with this iPad mini that it just seems a little extra slow on the screen, but overall, it probably won't bother too many people, but if you're someone who notices those small quirks, then you might notice this. I would strongly suggest that you go see it in person. Now with this front-facing camera on the iPad mini, it kind of got a little bit of a buzz because it has center stage. Now, I don't really want to basically say that the center stage feature is not good, because it's a really neat feature and it can be really useful when you're FaceTiming and moving around. However, don't expect, crazy good quality from that FaceTime camera. When I saw it, I was kind of surprised how bad it was, but don't expect to be taking selfies on this. It's definitely not as good as the iPhone or even the new iMac that came out with the 1080p camera. So one of the last drawbacks I want to talk about in this video is going to be the battery life. Now with the iPad Pro 12.9 inch, obviously because it's such a large device, it will have a much larger battery, and therefore that battery can last me a couple days. With this one, you're definitely going to expect to charge it every night, especially if you're going to be heavily using it. If you're using it constantly throughout the day, you might need to recharge it, and I think it really will depend on what type of things you do on your iPad. So if you're going to be watching videos, it'll drain the battery faster than if you're just taking notes or surfing the web. So make sure that you kind of keep an eye on the battery. And obviously I've only had this for a day, so the software hasn't had the time to adjust and kind of learn my patterns and optimize the battery. So we'll see how the battery life is going to actually be in the full review, and that's why I wanted to leave it towards the end of the drawbacks. Now there's one last topic I want to talk about in my 24 hours first impression videos, and that's going to be this thought I had while I was using this, and it was, why not just get the 13 Pro Max and skip the iPad mini altogether? And overall, I would have to say that if you're looking to save money, you can definitely just go for the 13 Pro Max and just skip the iPad mini, because you're going to have a 6.7 inch screen versus an 8.3, so obviously the size isn't fully there, but because you have more screen real estate, it'll feel more tablet-like, and you might feel less inclined to go for that larger screen. Or if you do feel like you need to go to a larger screen, you can go over to a laptop, or if you have a larger iPad, you can go to that larger iPad. But here's the thing, if you do go with the iPhone 13 Pro Max, you're not going to get the desktop browsing experience like you are going to have in the Safari app on the iPad. And on top of that, you're not going to have access to the iPad optimized apps. Now, if you're a student and you're wondering if this is going to be good for you, then make sure you hit the bell notification button and subscribe to the channel, so that way you're notified when I release the video on that specific topic, because that's going to be one of the videos coming out in the next week or two before the review. Now, if you're also interested, and you can click on the link over here, I also have a video coming out on my first 24 hours with the iPhone 13 Pro. I got the 13 Pro in Sierra Blue, and I had the 12 Pro last year, so I'm going to be doing some comparisons with that as well. So make sure you stay tuned for all this exciting new Apple content. And until next time, don't forget to take it easy with some tea.